The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Earnestly podcast coming to you on September 14th, 2021. I'm your host, Ernest E.J. Christian. Of course, this podcast is subscribed to all podcast catchers, such as Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, you name it. Solo episode today, because this is Tuesday, and once again, I'm free. My house is empty, no kids, nothing. The wife's at work. So again, time to record, and this is probably in the norm going forward. Tuesdays, she works a double, so like I'll have a chance to probably record a bunch of podcasts. Basically, what's going to happen now is I'm based on the schedule that we're currently on right now. I may be able to release at least anywhere between 2 and 4 podcasts a week on this feed. So, and that's not even including the wrestling podcast, Take 3 Wrestling, of course. But anyway, how you guys doing? It's been, I've had a nice couple of days off. I normally work Mondays, but I actually took yesterday off. Well, let me reverse a second. So, about 2 months ago, my wife had plans on going on a trip for a few days with one of her girlfriends, and she asked me to take. Well, I basically said, "Oh, okay, well, I'll take off that day, the Monday, and then this was make it like a little long weekend." Because unfortunately, my schedule works on the way where I don't have right now consecutive days off. I work Monday, off Tuesday, work Wednesday, off Thursday, work Friday, Saturday, work off Sunday. So, which kind of stinks in some ways because you don't, by the time I settle in my day off, I'm like, oh, I gotta work tomorrow, which whatever is what it is. But we do it that way because of by doing it this way, I'm able to not have to rely on other people to watch my kids, whatever. I don't like relying on people, so you make those sacrifices to make it necessary. So to me, I looked at it as though, okay, well, I have a 3-day weekend, Sunday through Tuesday, be a little good time, whatever. But then her trip got canceled, I think last week, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. And so I had the option now, well, if I'm not gonna, if I'm gonna continue, if I'm gonna keep the day off, or I'm gonna, go to work. So up until like this weekend, I was considering maybe going to work on Monday. But I honestly had a very stressful weekend, and it's funny because I wasn't even in a bad mood, or I wasn't even in a situation where like I wasn't, I just felt anxiety for some weird reason, and I was just like stressed. I don't know why, even though football's back and whatever, but I just felt. I felt I had control of my emotions and control of what I need to control. And I've been telling you guys this for, over the last year or two now. I've only started in the last year or two really getting down to the bones of really taking mental health seriously. For years, I didn't do that. I just looked at things. I was always a go person. Didn't think about what was, what's going on. I've always kept emotions in. And as I got older, I realized it's unhealthy. And it's taken out. It's created some behaviors through the years that I'm not necessarily proud of, and nothing horrible, but still, it's something that you look at. It's like, okay, well, I could have probably done this differently and this differently. So, heading to Sunday, I was like, well, you know what? Let me just keep the day off. Granted, I could definitely use the money, to work. I probably could have probably still have worked, but honestly. At the end of the day, the job's not going anywhere, the money's not going anywhere. I'll make money and I'll make it up somehow. And to me, I'm no good to myself. I'm no good to my family. I'm no good to anyone if I don't have my mentals in order. If I'm not, straight. If I'm not seeing things clearly. If I'm not settled into who I should be and who I'm supposed to be, I'm no good. Regardless of how much money I'm making, regardless of what I'm doing, I need to be in a situation where I could see clearly and whatnot. So I took a mental health day. I said, you know what? I'm going to keep the day off. I'm going to use this as a mental health day. It was actually a day off for my wife and I. We had a decent day, obviously. We didn't do anything out of the ordinary. We just cooked. We cooked a nice meal in the afternoon and took the kids to school, and we had some alone time, and it was good. It was solid. It was nothing over the top. It was just nice. And, I think as society, as we continue to discuss these things about mental health and address mental health and take it more seriously. Because again, this is something that even as a male, we have toxic masculinity and all that, and we're not taught to deal with our emotions. I know for a fact that for years I didn't deal with my emotions. And I know a lot of the males in my life have always never been really ones to say, do with emotions. It's always been go, 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 go. And I get that. That's because, again, we're probably raised. But that doesn't mean it has to continue being that way. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to continue being, a straight line and narrow, and that's it. We are human. One of the people I've been really following a lot that really addresses these things is a fellow named Dr. Jason O. Wilson. He's an influencer. He's really popular. He was on Joe Rogan actually recently. I think this is listen to that podcast in the coming days. But he's been someone that's been preaching, the idea of, men, especially men being, one with themselves, one with their emotions, and taking it seriously. We stress a lot. I stress a lot about a lot of things. I stress a lot about my kids, about the bills, about my marriage, about getting ahead and creating a future for our family, for my family especially too. And we, on the outside, you don't see that, but on the inside, that's what's going on. And we need to be able to deal with those things and be able to talk about those things with our spouses, our friends, our whoever is in our circle. In my case, in my circle, be able to talk those things and talk about those things in an honest way, and not have to feel like you're complaining or whining. I mean, that's healthy. Talking to people about your issues, about things that are on your mind that may be bothersome, are healthy. So that, and prioritizing your mental health and taking days off, not just if you don't feel good physically, but also mentally. Like if you're not with it, then just don't take time off. Like in my case, in my job, I deal with customers. I'm a poker dealer, so I'm dealing with customers, all the way throughout the day. And so it's very important that I am my best self when I am doing my job. And not just doing a job, I'm also, in a lot of ways, I'm entertaining, because I'm also running games. You know what I'm saying? So I need to make sure I am my best self at all times, or at least in that environment. So if you're not feeling it that day, step away. It's okay. You're not married to the job. Honestly, most jobs, you're really just a statistic. They can easily replace you. So why would you feel a need to be loyal? I'm not saying not be loyal to your job. Like, I love my job. I've been there 18 years. I love the people I work with. They're fantastic. But at the end of the day, that is not the number one priority in your life, and I'm sure everybody that works there will agree with that. Your family comes first, God comes first, things of that nature. The job provides the things you need to provide for your family, but it's not the be all end all. That's all. So prioritize your mental health always. Never, not take it seriously, because you never know. These things build up, and you get heart attacks, and you get sickness later in your life, and you don't want that. You really don't want that. So anyway, NFL Week 2 is in the books now. You guys follow me on social media, you guys know I always post my power rankings, my top 10, bottom 5 on my social media platforms. It's been doing it for a long time, about a decade or more, and it's very controversial all the time with people. It gets a lot of debates. I don't understand that. I love the fact that people look forward to this. I really do appreciate people looking forward to, me posting this stuff. But folks do get a little in their feelings about this thing. So I'm gonna give up my top 10, bottom 5 I posted today. Find it real quick. My bottom 5 is pretty easy. 28 to 32 in order, from worst to worser, I'm going to call it. Texans 28, Lions 29, Falcons 30. Bad loss against the Eagles. 31, my New York Giants, who are horrible. They're so bad, dude. I just did a podcast last podcast on that. And 32, the Jaguars. You're losing the Texans, obviously. I expect some of this to. The shocking one here is the Falcons. That was a bad loss to Philadelphia. Again, Philadelphia could be better, we think. I don't know. What's week 1? We'll see. 17 weeks to go. Going 10-1, 10 to Bills. Tough loss to the Steelers, but it's still top 10 team. We'll see how it goes this weekend. Big game against the Dolphins. Number 9, the Browns. Again, should have beaten the Chiefs. They had control of that game all the way through, most of the way. But they're still top 10 team. Number 8, the Chargers. Big win coming west to east against the Washington football team. Not the Redskins. I didn't say it. Number 7, the Saints. What a shock. Probably the shocking win of the weekend. Not just the fact they beat the Packers, but they also beat the Packers, on neutral field because of the hurricane and because of everything going on in New Orleans and Louisiana. And also winning 38-3 against the Packers team that was one game from the Super Bowl last year. And Aaron Rodgers. The big win for the Saints. It made me better than we thought we were. I said coming into the season that James Winston is the most interesting person I'm going to be watching this year. Number 6, sorry, my screen went blank for a second. Number 6, the Steelers. Again, big win against the Bills. I don't know how good they're going to be going forward. I mean, the defense is fantastic, but the offense, not so much. No running game. We'll see if they sustain that. 5, the Seahawks. Big win against the Colts. Russell Wilson, magnificent game. 4, the other team with the biggest win in the weekend is the Arizona Cardinals. Oh my gosh, dominant in Tennessee. Kyler Murray is the truth. Number 3, the Rams. As I said, one of my sleeper picks to go to the Super Bowl this year. Matthew Stafford. Number 2 and 1 is easy. It's 2 is the Chiefs. Again, big win against the Browns. Struggle most of the game, but find a way to win. And number 1, the Bucks. I thought about putting the Bucks a little lower because they struggle against the Cowboys, but again, they're champs and they get a little more leeway. So look for these going forward. I'll probably do some podcasts. I'm sure I'll do it every week, but it's content. You know what I mean? So we'll see. Stay with the NFL right now as we are going through week 2. Obviously tomorrow, and tomorrow I'll be recording my my week 2 picks with Zach. Eater versus Degenerate. And so the Sunday, like, one of the things that really frustrates me about the NFL the last couple of years really is I love Red Zone. I love NFL Red Zone. I think it's one of the most creative things ever put to TV, especially in football. Being able to watch all the games, at least have a hand in all the games. Now, granted, as a football fan, growing up, I always wanted to. I like the idea of being able to like focus on 1 or 2 games only, but the fact that you can get all the games at 1 o'clock and be able to at least check in and go through all that. Now, NFL Red Zone's great, but the NFL makes it hard to be available. So unfortunately, the NFL makes it where they have partners. Like, so they partner up with Fubu, or they partner up with who's it, Sling TV, or whoever streaming companies are in it. And I've been a cord cutter now for almost a decade now. I've been pretty much I've been the guy that I don't need cable. I found workarounds on that. Between Netflix and all the different streaming services I do have. And then, for NBA, I'll just get League Pass. I'll pay for League Pass. I'll pay for, whatever's there. But the NFL makes it hard for Red Zone, because for you to get Red Zone, you have to literally either have cable and then attach it to your cable company, to your cable service. So you have to get cable, which is, obviously it's a amount of money, and then you have to get it attached. Or you get the streaming service that I mentioned, Fubu or Sling TV, and then add on top of that. The problem is I don't have, let's not have the money. To me, it's a waste of money to do that for me. Because if I get Sling TV, to get Red Zone, for example, Sling TV, you got to pay $35 a month for Sling TV alone, just to get the service. And then to get the Red Zone or the packaging, the sports package attached to that is an extra $11. So now you're paying $46 or $47, $50 a month when it's all said and done because of taxes, just to have access to something you only can use for 6 hours a week or 7 hours a week. Doesn't make any sense. It's a bad value, because I don't watch enough TV to justify getting cable or any of these streaming services to begin with. So there is one workaround, and I did it this weekend finally. I ended up getting NFL Red Zone on mobile. You can get it on mobile only on the Apple. I don't know if it's on the Androids or Samsungs or maybe, but I know on the Apple you can get NFL Red Zone, and you pay $35 a month, $35 for the year. So basically paying $7 a month. Now I don't understand why the NFL just doesn't make Red Zone available standalone. What's funny? Like, and I was saying this last year too. I would pay up to $15 a month just for the access to Red Zone, or even $20 a month for the access to Red Zone. If you just attach it to Roku, for example, and you can just get the Red Zone, that's it, and pay a fee for that, I'm down with that. I know. Again, I know the NFL has the partnerships they have to uphold to, so that's why they do it this way. But if the NFL made Red Zone available to all streaming services, to Amazon, to Roku, to whatever Fire Stick, whatever it may be, I pay. I'll pay more than they charge now for it now. I'll pay $15 a month just for Red Zone. It's the access. It's the easier access. But for me to go and add cable TV to it, add cable to it on top of that, and just to get to the second layer, which is the sports package, it's ridiculous. So I got the Red Zone mobile. The positive, of course, is that at least now with the mobile, because the thing with NFL RedZone and watching football games for me is I love texting in the middle of games. All my buddies, we love talking about the games in real time. And when RedZone was actually initially available on mobile, they didn't have picture-in-picture at the time on the Apple. So you had to stop the screen, go to another screen to type, and I hated that. Now at least picture-in-picture does work on a mobile, so at least I can still watch the game while I'm actually typing with my friends. Because I love typing in real time during the games. Also, it works out well for me because my kids are still, they still hate that I watch football on Sundays and they want TV on Sundays. So at least with the Red Zone, I just have some control over some of the environment. So I don't necessarily need a big TV necessarily unless I have company coming over, which is not very, very often. But I just wish they make the Red Zone much easier and much more accessible to people. I mean, I get it. Again, the partnerships and all that. I get all that. But, geez, I would pay $15 to $20 a month just to have Red Zone sitting on Roku. Just sitting right there. $20 a month. Boom, Roku. That's $5 a weekend. I do in a heartbeat. I mean, I paid $35 for the year on mobile. And for me, it works out well. I'm lucky it works out really well for me because of my situation with my family. And again, my kids, don't every time I try to watch the game on TV, they didn't let me watch the game on TV because they want to see themselves. So I get that. So I can actually, at least for me, it works for the most part. And with picture-in-picture, of course, now on Apple, it works out fine. So, but I just wish the NFL made Red Zone more accessible. College football. Again, we're now 3 weeks into the college football season now. Weird year so far out the gate. You have Ohio State losing to Oregon recently. That Florida State loss still stings at me from Saturday against Jacksonville State. I know Zach and I will talk about it on the podcast on the next episode. We do. Miami almost losing to Appalachian State. It's been a strange year. It's been a year also where I'm not as invested because, I'm invested a little bit, but because I work on Saturdays now, it's hard. I have the, access to watch more games at work, but I'm working. I have, I work in front of like 40-something TVs, but again, if I'm working, I'm working. So I really rather enjoy watching it from my house, watching it from, where I have my own food and my own setup. That's why I love Sunday so much more now, because at least I'm home to watch that stuff. But it's been a weird year. The only thing we can say for sure has not changed is that Alabama is still leaps and bounds the best team in college football. I mean, I think obviously you've seen Georgia beat Clemson a couple weeks ago and whatnot, and they blew out this weekend. But do you really believe any of these teams can actually compete with Alabama? Florida doesn't have a crack on them this weekend, but I expect Alabama to destroy them. I really do. It's been a weird year for the most part outside the Alabama angle. I'm sure we'll talk more about that on the Huddle Up podcast. I'm actually appearing tonight on the Huddle Up podcast with our boy Big Jim, and I think Kyle Nash is joining us tonight too as well. But it's Bama or bust right now at this point. I mean, again, Oregon's good. I mean, big win against Ohio State, but can they sustain that? Probably not. They're not going to compete with Alabama. Georgia might be the only team I would say I have some faith in competing with Alabama. But do you think they'll beat Alabama? No, I don't think they'll beat Alabama. So that's just that with the college football season. But it's been a weird year, and Florida State now 0-2 and one disastrous loss last week. I've already started checking out for the season. It sucks. I'm not used to Florida State being this bad. I'm not. This is just weird, And then the way they lost last week is just, it's disgusting, But it is what it is, It's just, we're in that era now. All right, let's talk about vaccines and vaccine mandates. Joe Biden last week had rolled out some information about forcing people to, companies, I think it was if you are an employer that employs more than 100 people in a business, that they are mandating vaccinations to happen. Now, lots of controversy on that one. Even myself, who, while I did vote for Joe Biden, I'm a moderate. I do, my stance on vaccines, I'm pro-vax, but I also believe that people have the right to do what they want to do. Even though I don't have to like that you don't want vaccines. I got a great friend of mine who I love to death, great dude, but he's not taking the vaccine, and I've been trying to get him to do it. But it's his choice. He can do what he wants. But anyway, my argument, I put a pretty sizable social media post last week. I got some discussions going about that. But what I didn't include, and I didn't realize till after the fact, is that Joe Biden isn't necessarily mandating it in a way where you're going to get fined or none of that stuff. Apparently, what Joe Biden has said, and this is to clarify, this is why it's important to get all the information. That even I fucked up here a little bit. Was that either these businesses actually mandate vaccinations in their company, or do weekly testing. No one said that. No one on the right especially said that. They just said, forced vaccines. No, that's one of two choices. Now I still believe that, and again, my position on this still stands. Like, I'm pro-vax. I want everybody to take the vaccine. Not everybody can take it, especially for health purposes. I don't have a couple of friends who do want to take it, but can't because of health reasons. They've been told by the doctor not to do it. But Joe Biden and the federal government should not be in the business of telling private business and private owners or private citizens what to do. If he wants to force the federal government or federal employees to mandate it, this is right, because he is the head of the federal sector. But anything outside that jurisdiction is it's a overreach, in my opinion. That was my larger point about what I posted last week, was that making sure that he's not overstepping his bounds. But I didn't realize until after that he said that if you don't take the vaccine, the business don't enforce it, then do weekly testing. So, a little blip I forgot to mention, and I'm glad I was able to see that. Joe Biden is right now going through a real rough time right now. His pool ratings is sinking. Now, I don't know if that's because of the vaccine or is it because of Afghanistan. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of bombs, a lot of like warts, a lot of little things here. We knew that this administration had a lot of challenges coming out of Trump, following the Trump administration. I don't know how the Democrats will look for, in 2022 for the midterms. I mean, the optics will tell you that they're in trouble, but who knows? I know a lot of liberals that I talk to are not happy with Joe Biden themselves. A lot of far-left liberals. But my defense of Joe Biden here, I will say, is this. And not just Joe Biden necessarily, but the Democratic Party in general, which, by the way, I'm not a Democrat, so I'm not even defending here. But the Democratic tent is much larger than a Republican tent. Like, say what you want, libs, this and that. Not every single liberal thinks the way AOC does or Bernie Sanders does. There's much more diversity, I would say, in the Democratic Party than there is in the Republican Party. And I can say that because I used to be Republican. Okay. Now, I would say recently the GOP has probably started to diversify a little more. I mean, they've grown their Latin base a little bit now. I know the black base is starting to grow a little bit. It's nowhere still close to the Democratic, but it's definitely grown in the post-Trump era. But the Democratic tent is much larger than the Republican tent. And again, we played a game of optics at the end of the day. I don't know how things look in 2022 for the Democrats. I don't know. I mean, because on one hand, you have people who are praising DeSantis, for example, here in Florida for how he's handled it, but then cases are going up and more deaths are going up and whatnot, and there is some pushback too. So I just wish all of this stuff wasn't political in the same way. Unfortunately, it is. But it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting. Honestly, 14 months, because as I said in a previous episode a couple weeks ago, we are in campaign mode already. We're already there because midterms are more important, much more important than people give credit for, and we're actually 14 months from the midterms. We're not that far away. This stuff goes fast, dude. The turnaround between the midterms and the general election, and then back to the midterms again and general election, are quick in a hurry, especially in this era. So something to keep an eye on. Like I said, I actually do support vaccines, people to take vaccinations. I don't support mandatory vaccinations. Again, people make their own choices. I do support businesses, though, if they choose to enforce it themselves. That's their choice. But again, that's their choice. Like if my job says we have to wear masks or we have to do a mask mandate or a vaccine mandate, then they have the right to do that. And I have a choice to either follow through or leave. It's that simple. The whole point of my diatribe last week was crossing lines here. Joe Biden cannot be crossing lines. Any president shouldn't be crossing lines. I don't give a shit who it is. Trump, Obama, Biden, doesn't matter. If you want to enforce it on the federal sector, have at it. You're the boss of that. But private sector and whatnot, no. There's levels to this, and it applies also to governors too in their states and everything else. So, anyway, this is something I actually wanted to touch on last week. I forgot to touch on, but there was like a little debate on Twitter yesterday. Well, not yesterday, last week, and it was talking about who's the queen of pop, Janet Jackson or Madonna. Now, I'm a huge fan of both artists. You guys know I love Janet because I love Michael. But a lot of people probably don't know this, but I'm a huge Madonna fan. I'm a much bigger Madonna fan than I probably let on. I love her music. I especially love her music. I actually, the Ray of Light album that came out in 1997 is actually one of my top 10, 15 favorite records of all time. So this is a debate going on here about who's the queen of pop, Janet or Madonna. How do we determine these things? Do record sales determine this stuff? Does talent determine this stuff? Because both are talent. I would argue Janet Jackson is more talented, probably a better singer slightly, and probably a better performer than Madonna. But Madonna, I keep telling the people on the Janet corner, don't sell Madonna short here. Madonna was a trendsetter. And you can argue that Madonna paved the way for a lot of what Janet did in the years to come. Madonna was the first woman, really, you think about it, first major star that actually pushed boundaries in a way that when Janet did it in 1993 with the Rolling Stone cover, where she was with the guy holding her boobs and whatnot, Madonna started that first. Madonna pushed those boundaries before Janet did. So there's a lot of things that Madonna doesn't get credit for, especially if you're in the Janet camp. Now, who has better music? I mean, again, who has better songs and better music is at the end of the day, that's all subjective. That's all subjective. Do I prefer one or the other more? I probably prefer Janet's a little more. I don't know. But I love Madonna's music, though. So, I mean, it could be a wash. Who has better discography? I would say Janet Jackson's albums, for the most part, most of her albums have probably had more impact, culturally speaking. Like Control. Like, if you think of Madonna albums, for example, like which Madonna albums stand out, really? Like, to me, the only ones that stand out to me personally is Ray of Light, of course, which is a brilliant record, produced by William Orbit. Looks like it came out in 1997. Bedtime, I love Bedtime Stories, actually. That came out in 94. That was the album that really, really heavily got me into her. It came out in 94. But then you have all the albums that came out in the 80s, like, I think it was a True Blue album. I think it was a couple other ones. But those albums never stood out in the same way. Like, most folks can actually name Janet albums, at least 3 or 4. Like, Control stands out. Rhythm Nation stands out. Velvet Rope stands out. The Janet album stands out. Now, Madonna has sold more records. Madonna has sold more records than Janet Jackson. I mean, people are shocked by that. Madonna is actually one of the top 5 or 10 biggest selling artists in history of music. I think people forget Madonna is huge, not just in America, but she's huge outside this country. Huge. I would dare say she's bigger than Janet outside America. I would dare say that. The sales and the sales reflect that. That's the baseline what we use to determine, popularity is record sales. And Madonna has that in spades. Who's a better artist? I mean, again, and that's subjective. Like, I probably prefer Janet by a little bit, but Madonna's right there. Like, my three favorite female artists are Janet, Madonna, and Whitney Houston. But it was an interesting argument because, a lot of it comes from cultural too. One's black, one's white, one's a Jackson, one is, not one. So there's a lot of bias by people on this topic, and there's not enough nuance on this topic. I love both artists, like I said. But it was interesting to see that on social media. Very interesting to see that debate, and I like it. I mean, I think both artists have carved out their own niche. I think Janet, to her credit, Janet Jackson, especially when you consider that she's the sister of arguably the biggest artist in history of music, in Michael, for her to actually carve her own niche and to have her own lane, despite that, and you can't even say she benefited from Michael, because when she started performing at first, her first couple albums flopped. She changed her sound and her look is what changed everything for her. People forget Janet Jackson released 2 albums prior to Control that didn't do well at all in the charts. And then she changed up her look. She got new producers, Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis. And then from there, she carved her own niche. You can argue that there was a little period there in the 90s where Janet was bigger than Michael for a couple of years. Rhythm Nation, not so much Rhythm Nation, but like the Janet album, and then especially Velvet Rope, she was on a roll. She was a radio darling. She was on radio more than Michael in that era. Now, a lot has to do with Michael's controversies and whatnot, and that's the topic of another day, obviously. But, Janet was rolling for a little while, at least in America. Now, outside the States, of course, Michael's bigger. That's not even a conversation. And as I said, Madonna's bigger, probably, outside the country. But, yeah, it's an interesting debate. It really is. I love both artists, honestly. So, all right, finally, before I go, and again, I'm enjoying today's podcast. I'm quiet house here. No one's here, able to record out any issue. Before I go, my wife and I actually started watching Ted Lasso on Apple. Is it Apple Plus? Apple TV. Apple TV, sorry. Apple TV, whatever the hell it is. I've been here for the last year or so that Ted Lasso is one of the best shows written in a long time. And I've heard that too. And then, my wife and I, we go back and forth with binging. We've kind of slowed down a lot in the last couple of years, at least her and I, because of, I have a lot of things I'm watching on my own, wrestling, sports, you name it, that distract me, whereas she's more streamlined. Like if she's watching a show, she's going to stick with it, whatever. For some reason, she had decided that she wanted to start Ted Lasso about a week ago. Ted Lasso is 10 episodes, each episode 30 minutes, give or take a little more, a little less, depending on the episode. And we also figured out that the creator of Ted Lasso, was also the creator of her and I's favorite show of all time, Scrubs. Bill Lawrence was the creator of Ted Lasso. So that alone got us intrigued about the show, especially too. And then you hear people, listen to podcasts, you listen to friends talk about it. A couple good friends of mine started watching it, and they said you need to watch it immediately. And we started watching it last week, and we are obsessed. We already finished season 1. We're actually almost done with season 2. I think the season finale of season 2 is this week, so we're actually going to be caught up by the time they drop it on Friday. It's a fantastic show. I love I love the character development of a lot of these characters. Ted Lasso especially being one, but Roy Kent. He's the aging football player. It's a soccer. Basically, this show is based on Ted Lasso, who's a football coach, American football coach, who gets hired by a English owner who's trying really to destroy her team. Who's really trying to, because she just got divorced from her husband, and her husband was her husband's ex-husband now. His passion was this soccer team, the AFC Richmond, and the idea she had was she wanted to destroy the team. Like, so she hired somebody who doesn't coach soccer, nothing about soccer, but coach football. So he brought him in, from England, and all that. And then you have these players, these different players, and you have Roy Kent, who's my favorite captain of the whole show, who's the aging star who hasn't been relevant in a couple of years. You got Jamie Tart, who's a cocky star, and all these other elements of the show. And the thing about the show that really gets me right and really enjoy, I love watching characters grow and develop before your eyes. You want to see characters change. If you're watching a show long term, you want to see the growth of the character. And this show has that in spades. Ted Lasso, you see he's this innocent and country boy, but you start seeing some things. You start seeing him, going through divorce, him going through anxiety, going through therapy now. His character arc is great. Roy Kent is fantastic too. He's like an aging star, always cursing. Real nice guy, but angry guy. Nice guy at the core. Ends up dating Jamie Tartt's girlfriend, and they work it out. And I love the character development of all these characters. The owner, especially Rebecca. You're supposed to not like her because she's trying to destroy this team from the inside, but basically tanking his team for good to get revenge on her ex-husband. But then you meet the ex-husband later on in the show, and you see why she hates him. He's a douchebag. He's a big douchebag. And she becomes this somewhat unlikable character to this really, really likable and very sweet. And now she's actually on board with keeping this team, making this team work. So it's a great show. It's on Apple TV. Apple TV. Like I said, I couldn't recommend this show enough for you guys. So check it out. Like I said, season 2 will be ending this week. They already cleared season 3 for development. So yeah, Ted Lasso, excellent show. Looking forward to watching the season finale this week. So anyway, I think that will do it for this podcast. Of course, September 14, 2021. On Twitter at EJChristian7. We're gonna be doing like at least between 2 and 40 shows a week. Next episode probably dropping Wednesday, tomorrow, whatever. This is podcast. Zach and I doing our week 2 picks. That's gonna be interesting. That's gonna be an interesting podcast. Can't wait to do it. So until then, love you guys. Take care and stay up and see ya.